It was definitely, a lot crazier, a lot more intense than any kind of op I'd been on before.
3 Canadian volunteers got their baptism by fire in eastern Ukraine, fighting alongside the 3rd Assault Brigade. Together with their Ukrainian brothers-in-arms, they held a city sector where the odds were 5-1 in Russia's favor, risking their lives. The Canadians covered the withdrawal of friendly units under heavy fire. During the mission, they gained not just first-hand experience in urban combat, but also some serious injuries.
But the tourniquets hurt like a bitch. Those things just tighten on so much. I couldn't use both my arms. I had like noodles for arms.
So what was the battle really like? The one that dragged on for a whole week. Let's hear it straight from the people who were there. When Russian forces broke through the defenses of Avdiivka, Ukrainian command began a gradual withdrawal to save the lives of its troops. To buy time, they sent in the 3rd Assault Brigade, along with the Canadian volunteers.
Our mission was to basically counterattack the Russians, hold them back, so that the other Ukrainians could pull out of the encirclement.
We were getting ready. Some people were going to zero in their weapons.
The intensity of the fire was so overwhelming that even the 2nd and 3rd lines of defense were feeling the pressure.
Don't have this illusion if you're planning to go into a drone unit that, because you're in a drone thing, you're safer because you become a prime target. They throw everything they have at you.
Before we dive into this gripping story, hit that like button to help this video reach even more people. The first stage of the mission was to get troops to the front line as fast as possible. For that, the Ukrainians deployed American M113s. Here's how one Canadian volunteer remembers the start of the operation.
The moment you load up into the M113, the door shuts and the ramp closes. And that's when it becomes real. You feel the vehicle move, and it's, we're going into combat, or we're going into a zone under fire.
As the old army saying goes, the waiting is worse than the fight. Even seasoned soldiers feel nervous at first, but once it starts, they kick into gear and fall back on years of training.
Yeah, the whole time you're just thinking, wondering how you're gonna react when that ramp drops or if you come under contact.
At this point, it was like 3 in the morning, and we're thinking, when's this going to start? When's this going to start?
To reduce the risk of being spotted, the soldiers moved in under the cover of night. That doesn't guarantee safety from Russian drones, but it does improve the odds, even if just a little.
We didn't want to be going into the city when it was daylight, because the road going into Avdiivka was getting tighter and tighter, very easy to shoot artillery on it, any other kind of fire support, so it was very risky going in.
But this war plays out practically in real time, and halfway down the road, a Russian recon drone spotted movement. The soldiers knew it was only a matter of minutes before the artillery would start.
Which, while we were driving to location, we were getting hit by, I don't know what it was exactly, it might have been a Dishka or something smaller, but you can hear rounds rattling off of the armor as we were getting closer and closer.
The Russians use a tactic called fire curtain. The goal is to wipe out everything in the area with overwhelming firepower. That night, the Canadians got the full experience. An uninterrupted storm of incoming fire from every direction. Subscribe to the channel to see more frontline realities and the weapons used in modern war.
My first experience, my first deployment, first assignment, it was like they mentioned, you couldn't probably count to 5 without having artillery or mortars or bombs or anything going off. It was constant. It was like an orchestra. You just kept going and going and going without stopping. Hrad would just pa 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 pa, getting closer and closer.
Staying in the M113 any longer would have been suicide. Russian FPV drones were already waiting for them. The soldiers dismounted, ahead of them, miles on foot, through some of the toughest battlefield conditions imaginable.
From where we get dropped off by the M113, it was about 4 kilometers of walking in, and we're walking on like kind of mud and snow, and it was definitely a little bit of exercise for sure, especially with the machine gun and all the ammo.
To stop Ukrainian reinforcements from reaching the sector, Russian jets began dropping heavy glide bombs from the sky.
And that, I remember we were walking for like half a day, and that was interesting because it was the first time I ever witnessed a glide bomb. I think it was a glide bomb. It was constant jets, constant artillery, constant mortars, and But this thing it was stranger.
For the Canadian volunteers, this moment was basically a second birthday. Not everyone gets to walk away when a guided aerial bomb detonates just a few yards away.
But you saw two wings and this thing, and it landed maybe like 30 meters away, 20, 30 meters away. And I, like, obviously you drop right away, but at this point I dropped kind of like on my knees and hands because I couldn't stop staring at it because I couldn't believe my eyes that so much soil went up in the sky.
Eventually, the soldiers made it to the city, only to run into ambushes. The fight was brutal, block by block.
We see some Russians running past the fence in front of us. Bandit and I were holding one room, we're watching the fence line.
Perfect moment to mow them down with a machine gun. But of course, Soviet-era gear had its own plans. Right when it mattered most, the PKM jammed, and the Canadians were one jammed bolt away from death.
You know, the most important weapon in the team doesn't work. So I took one of the other guys, I swapped out with him. Bandit was shooting back, and I run into another room trying to fix my PKM problem.
The machine gun is the backbone of infantry firepower. Without it, suppressing the enemy becomes a nightmare. Luckily, the team had more than one machine gunner. That redundancy may have saved lives.
I traded out PKMs with another Ukrainian PKM gunner because he got some shrapnel in the arm, so he couldn't use his PKM as effectively.
And just as the weapon was sorted out, the fight moved to close quarters. It was time to put all that training to the test.
Eventually, I noticed that the metal was wiggling and started to take a closer look. And yeah, 3 Russians were peeling it and pushing one of their men through to fit through. And I took my weapon off safe, put it on automatic. Keep in mind, this is 20 meters in front of me. Yeah, I aimed my rifle.
Fortune favored the Canadians that night, but who knows how it would have ended if they hadn't fixed that machine gun jam in time.
He looks up at me, and there's the pure look of shock, and he grabs the fence like this, puts his feet forward and starts pushing back, but the guys with him, they weren't looking, so they were still pushing him through as he was trying to come back, and yeah, I ended up killing all 3 of them there.
Holding the line wasn't just a tactical challenge. It was a physical and mental one too. Imagine trying to fend off wave after wave of Russian assaults in freezing weather with barely any rest.
It was only about, what, -3, -5, yeah. Not too cold, but, you know, being out there for hours and hours, you know, we're not getting the calories we need kind of thing. You know, you start getting pretty cold, you get exhausted, staying awake so long. So that's kind of how it was almost every night. Some nights were colder than others.
The stress became a daily routine. No one was even thinking about pulling back. Giving up ground meant risking the lives of your brothers in arms.
Holding watch for 2 hours at a time at nights, you know, because we'd switch off, do rotations, make sure guys got rest. And to sit there with the thermal camera, you know, just watching one area for hours and hours, it gets pretty tiring. Especially after it's like, you know, day 3, day 4, day 5. It's just mental, physical exhaustion.
Russian shelling never stopped. The pressure only grew, and sometimes the shells came terrifyingly close.
Yeah, two shells ended up hitting our building directly. Luckily, everybody was okay, but yeah, it definitely shakes you up a bit, like, holy shit.
And no matter how tough or experienced you are, when the whole Russian arsenal starts flying your way, nobody's invincible.
So I was yelling out, I'm 300, I'm hit. And I was yelling out a guy's name that wasn't even there. You know, like I was yelling out like Archie or something like that. The guy wasn't even there.
But even with the ground shaking beneath him, the Canadian soldier kept his cool. His training in combat first aid and a quality tourniquet made all the difference.
But even being in that, the first reaction was drop on my back, take my tourniquet out, and apply the tourniquet immediately.
Of course, the chaos didn't stop there. They still had to evacuate the wounded, using civilian cars to reach the nearest M113s.
As soon as we start driving, literally like not even 2-3 seconds go by, you see him do this, try this, all the brakes failed. Like there was no brakes in the car whatsoever, and they functioned up till that second.
And when they finally made it to the spot where the M113s were supposed to pick them up, surprise, surprise, the news got worse.
And then I guess we got the news that the M113s couldn't drive us out anymore. It was too risky, it was too much artillery fire on the road. We had to walk out on foot on an open road.
That road, it got a nickname real quick: the Highway of Death. Burned out vehicles lined the path, and shells were exploding non-stop.
Every 10-20 meters you'd step, there'd be a shell going off right next to you. Yeah, my machine gunner got hit.
We had 2 strikes come very, very close to us, to the point where my ears were ringing, my head was spinning.
But in the end, the Canadians and their Ukrainian brothers in arms completed the mission. Thanks to their teamwork, friendly forces were able to fall back to stronger positions. To take the city, Russia had to bring in up to 150,000 troops, and suffered such massive equipment losses, they started throwing ancient BTR-90s and BTR-50s into the fight. The kind of stuff you'd expect to see in a museum, not a modern war. Imagine the scale of that battle for a town like Avdiivka. We're betting it was hell. More details about International Legion you can find on official website.